Kyle here from All Media Reviews. I got some records that I got in CD, but I think I'm gonna wait till after Black Friday Record Store Day to do like a haul. My wife and I'll be doing that, but to show some of that stuff because I found some good records over the last few days at Half Price Books and got some stuff in the mail. So, you're here to do modern, modern MPAR is not the if you Google it, but modern progressive art rock, the year 2003. But just to start off quickly, some stuff that I missed. I'll be talking about all these bands in 2003, but um, one album from 1999 was I Mother Earth's Blue, Green, Orange, which I just got literally in the last 6 months. I never heard this record. I finally found it on Discogs, decided to buy it. It's good, but it's with a different singer. Edwin's not the singer, but it's not bad. I like a lot of it. And talking about the one that followed it in 2003, that came out in '99. And then the Canadian post rock band Do Make Say Think, who I think some of the members might have been involved with Broken Social Scene at one point. I could be wrong, or maybe at Silvermont Zion side project. I don't talk about them, but Godspeed Do Black Emperor. But this is their album. I mentioned in the description. Uh, Yet and Yet. I think it's and Yet. But I saw them live the same day I saw Appleseed Cast at different venues. I did a concert jump, but they're I like them, but I've never been blown away. But I mean, later on, there's another band that kind of came around called The Most Serene Republic. It's a similar deal where I think they're pretty much instrumental from my memory. If I've listened to this, and I have another one of their albums, but they use chamber instruments. They kind of, in some ways, were the first post rock band that used chamber instruments. But anyway, this came out in 2002, and then I don't have a copy of their first EP. Their second EP came out in 2002. This is Caddisfly's Humania. Honorable Mention was the first one. I don't even know if Honorable Mention ever came out as a physical. It might have just been something they just let people download. I forget. Well, come to think of it, I think they did, but I had the guys sign it and stuff. But Caddisfly from Portland, Oregon, who would went on to do different things. They were almost purely post hardcore at this point. But so getting on with 2003. So the first, I mean, I don't know if this is the date. It might have been much later in the year. Um, but this is the album. I have it as January 1st, 2003. The second album from avant-garde rock band Time of Orchids. It's like, why I wouldn't include them all, nor the one I include them. I don't know. They weren't as metal. They didn't have death metal growls for one thing, but I kind of go back and forth between this one and the one before from the year before, the debut album from Time of Orchids. You know, their vocals kind of sound like Mew. I think it was 2002, if I'm not mistaken. 2001 or 2002, because I talked about it from memory. I don't see it on here though. Oh, it's 2001 actually. Melon Whispers 2 years before that. So, but this is too much fun, much too much fun rather. But I haven't listened to this many years when I was getting into them about 10 plus years ago. Same exact, plenty of room. Um, the last song decides. It's avant-garde, but it's quirky and there's these little subtle melodies, but the production would go up a little bit. A lot of their stuff is more lo-fi, but it would go up at least from these first two records to the ones that followed, the two that followed it. But I don't know if this was on the John Zorn label. It was the next one that was. But anyway, too much fun. The second album from Time of Orchids came on the 1st of January 2003, according to what I found. All right, so the second one I've got on the list was the next month, and it was right when the I was associate this album with when the U.S. invaded Iraq, right around the same time. The side project between Jim Matheos, it was going to be Mike Portnoy and some other people, and then Kevin Moore eventually. Stephen Wilson's on track. The debut album from OSI, Office of Strategic Influence. A fantastic album. While it is prog metal of a kind, because it's Jim Matheos and guitar riffs, there's enough sort of post rock, what's the word? Ambient or electronic textures in here, which resembles like your likes of Peter Gabriel and Nine Inch Nails and Tortoise. Tortoise was the band I was trying to think of. Kevin Moore is a fan of, but oh man, this is a fantastic record. It's really not. There's some riffing that's kind of metal, but as a whole, it's really more. Yeah, it's more in the line of like indie tronica in some ways, or industrial, but electronics. But the vocals are pretty straightforward by Kevin Moore. The song "Shutdown," of course, gets pretty heavy, and it guest has the guest vocals. Well, guest vocals. They have Steven Wilson doing some of the vocals on that. I think all of it actually. But the title track, the new math, Head, Hello Helicopter is great. Of course, this includes the cover of Neil Young's New Mama and the thing that, the Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun by Pink Floyd. So, February 18th, 2003, OSI's debut album. Unfortunately, I don't think they ever really did anything quite like that again, but the other records have their moments. Um, all right, so moving on. It was 5 days later. We see Sheena Ringo, Japanese singer songwriter savant. I think it was her fourth album, third or fourth album. It's her most rated and highest rated album on Rate Your Music, over 13,000 ratings. I'm not sure what it actually translates to, but Hike Saman Kuri no Hana, which I've been listening to this album the last couple days, and I'm unbelievable. Like, there's 4 or 5 just bangers on here. It's like orchestral, classical influence, jazzy, of course, some like hooks, some like kind of funky moments. There's 4 or 5 bangers on this record. I've slept on her. I've known her. I've known her with Tokyo Jihan, of course, even some of their stuff, but she's a genius. I think, I mean, in some ways, I know it has that kind of yee-wah vocal style at points because that's naturally how she sings, but some of the arrangements, some of the just, oh man, the instrumentation, the groove, the big moments, the layering. She's so diverse. She can sing in multiple languages. I may have to just deep dive in 2025. Maybe I got into Brian Scary a couple years ago. She's one that I need to spend more time just to know. The thing is, all her music is basically labeled in Japanese. I think it's basically her first 4 or 5 records that are sort of the essentials. But let me find it again. I was on it in her within her catalog. It came out February 23rd, 2003. Talking about her fourth record. Um, yeah, because I'm only just vaguely familiar with a lot, and she has like 12 albums or something, along with about 6 or 5 or 6 at least Tokyo Gion albums. Those first, like the first two and the fourth and fifth one of them is was a soundtrack, but they're bolded, and the one in between, I don't know what's the deal with that, but Shosho Strip from 2000 was great, but I think this might be even better. Let me just see here. Kak Samen Curry no Hana, which translates to, I just looked up, one of the songs on this album is titled, I just posted it. Um, something chestnut flower. Has like a teacup, but what was it? Yeah, that song. It's like the fifth track. I just posted it on Twitter. The fifth track is a banger. I mean, pretty much all her music are. I mean, so much all of it, but there's so much of her music I've just been blown away by. A Quick Job, it's titled. I think it's the fifth track. Yatsuki Shigoto. Yatsuki Shigoto. It's a mouthful because it's Japanese, but Quick Job. Oh my god, it's like jellyfish kind of. So Sheena Ringo's what would be fourth proper album. Um, flower, chestnut, flower chestnut, whatever it translates, was released on February 23rd, 2003. So moving on, I want to get going here and linger around here. So the fourth, and I guess it's probably their last album. It's been 21 years since they put out a couple songs, but I Mother Earth followed up Blue Green Orange with Quicksilver Meat Dream, which was released on April 8th, 2003. And it's interesting. It almost looks like a burned CD. But it's with their new singer. Edwin wasn't the singer, so I bought this years ago and listened to it a couple times, and I just kind of got lost in it. But The first two I Mother Earth albums are kind of classic. The second two, the two more recent, you could say in a way. This is kind of hit and miss. But again, I haven't listened to this in a long time. I remember buying this. Got this on Amazon or where I got it. Song called Chaka or Choke rather, the second track. Yeah, I mean, they were trying to kind of come back, and they got some somewhat popular in the 90s, especially in Canada. But I'm Mother Earth's most recent album, you could call like a final album. Hopefully, they'll put out another record someday. Quicksilver Meet Dream came out on April 8th, 2003. So the next month, we see the sophomore record from the new Pornographers, electric version, which I believe this is the one that has my favorite track. Yes, it's only Divine Right, which is like let's say it's like 6 or 7 minutes. But I think it's slightly a step up. It's pretty close to Mass Romantic. But the title track is pretty good. I mean, it's catchy. It's power popish, but with like sort of an indie flair, you could say. They're all good singers, the members of the new Pornographers. So the laws have changed, all for swinging you around. It's only Divine Right, you know. There you go. So anyway, that came out May 6, 2003. The next month after I'm Mother Earth. So then in June was a big month. We had was it three records, three records in progressive art rock. The first one being Biffy Clyro on the same day actually. Biffy Clyro's sophomore record, The Vertigo of Bliss, which this is proggy, but at the same time, it's still not like going as sort of clean production. There's definitely a post-hardcore influence on this, but it's more artsy. I think they were being a little more ambitious on this record than the one after it. Bodies in Flight, Diary of Always Liberate the Illiterate, Toys, 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 Choke, Toys, yeah. We have a chapter one. I mean, Simon Neil wasn't singing purely clean vocals. I think once he started doing that, for the most part, they their music became more accessible, I guess you could say. But at the same time, I know people that swear by this, including I think Lorenzo, that this is their favorite Bliss, the Vertigo Bliss, Biffy Clyro album. So that was on the 16th of June. So then the same day actually, kind of a breakthrough record, and a lot of hardcore fans look at this as some of the start. I mean, people love the early. Some people like the real hardcore love the early, but a lot of the sort of mid-level fans, I think of the Muse sort of breakout record was Frengers from 2003. They got kind of finally known outside of Denmark. And of course, as I mentioned many times on camera, that Frengers basically is re-recordings of mostly songs from the last record and a couple songs off the debut. I can't remember if there's any. One or two of them were like B-sides, or like there was like maybe a couple singles they released. Eight Flew Over. One was Destroyed. I want to say this has a song. The vinyl version has the song Wherever, but yeah, Am I Right? No, 156, No Brigade. Symmetry might have been new. It had the guest female like child vocalist. Behind the Drapes, Her Voice Is Beyond Her Years was on. I believe Half the World was again, but their rearrangements. This was produced by I want to say it was Rich Kotze, but I could be wrong. Oh, I mean, it's just as a Mew fan, this is definitely the most recommended I've found. Much as I love many of their other records, for someone who's new. If I had heard this first, I probably would have gotten more into them. Although some of it's just Jonas's vocal style. But this is a fantastic album. It's a staple in progressive art rock to me. It's progressive dream pop rock, really. Am I Right? No is just a favorite of many people, and of course, Comforting Sounds. Every prog fan that gets into Mew talks about that being like dreamy. It's like a Pink Floyd thing, or but anyway, yes, Frengers is a classic. Came out the same day as a Biffy Clyro record on June 16th, 2003. Then the next day, the very next day, another massive album came out. That's why I'm of the belief that 2003 was sort of the start of sort of the kind of the zeitgeist of this so-called hybrid progressive art rock, alternative, progressive alternative, whatever you want to call it, progressive indie rock. The Mars Volta's debut album, the largely renowned, influential, and considered this is some ways you could say LCL in some ways, some of the other records, but the face of this style. This is a new kind of prog rock. It's not sounding like Spock Spirit or Dream Theater. It's not sounding like Genesis or Yes. It's kind of, the Mars Voltas and the Louse and the Comatorium. While I love this record, I still swear by it for the most part. I still think they topped it with the next one, but I wouldn't deny the importance of this record. This was the closest thing to like mainstream progressive rock has got in some ways, really, since. And it had been probably even they probably got more play than even Dream Theater. So really since the 70s, you could say in some ways. Got bigger than anything Marillion ever did in the 80s too. Um, but yeah, I mean, Inertiatic ESP, you name this, Televators. There's a the whole record to me actually kind of sounds like a suite. I mean, I know it's produced by Rick Rubin. It has the different tracks, different lyrics but they connect and it just flows so well. The drum work of John Theodore is fantastic. It's so tight. Um, but I mean, I can't deny that. As much again, I think they topped it with the next one for the most part, and it's not in like absolute staple perfect album to me. It's close though. It's pretty damn close, and I listened to it a ton in 2003. I always think of 2003 for this album and OSI. That's I first think of those. That and then the John RGP, of course. So that was June 17th. So you had those 3 days in June. Those the 2 days in June. You had Frengers, Biffy, and the Mars Volta. Biffy was pretty obscure at that point. Mute just was starting to get more known because they got a major label. So then in July, just a few weeks later, you had sort of a breakthrough for him, although the next one was more of a breakthrough. You had Sufjan Stevens, which is in fact, I guess, his third album. I like found some the previous records he released that I don't have physical copies of, but Michigan, or which he's from Michigan, so it's his home state. I thought I added them. No, I didn't. Yeah, no, Sun came in 2000, June 13th. Likes releasing things in albums in the summer. And then Enjoy Your Rabbit, September 18th, 2001. But this was his third album, and the first was going to be like a full states project, which was way too ambitious. But the first of whatever 2 records he made that were about a state in the U.S. I like this, although he swallows into the mic at times. Of course, he has the excessively long song titles, which he would do that frequently, Sufjan. Um, but his first 2 records, well, I've listened to them only a little bit, are more electronic at points. This one, he was embracing the folk thing. He was sounding like almost like Cat Stevens at points. Um, if I named a favorite, Say Yes to Michigan, Upper Peninsula. I mean, the Sleeping Bears, Salt Saint Marie. Oh God, Where Are We Now? I mean, yeah, he's just getting kind of funny. It's like he doesn't come up with. Is it creative or is it just the Great Lakes, of course. But anyway, the Great Lake State, Michigan. Greetings from Michigan, or Michigan as it's known, from Sufjan Stevens on July 1st. Very patriotic date, right around 4th of July in 2003. Came out. Chamber folk rock, which is under the sort of progressive art rock umbrella. Um, so then, and the next month in August, you see the sophomore record from hybrid, but Finland's based somewhat in Finland. Pepe Deluxe. I did a Pepe Deluxe series earlier this year in the summertime when the new album came out. Beatitude, which I think of first and foremost this album for the track that's not even listed on here, Vamos Muchachos, which is like very Latin, but it's catchy as hell. But after listening to this, and I know they did videos like for Girl, and this is I talked about that in my review. It's not as breakbeat and DJ influence as Super Sound, the debut album, which came out in '99. I retro listed that too, but it still has enough of that. But it's definitely they were bringing in the retro instruments and the vintage sound more so, and that sort of experiments with electronics and loops and stuff like that. But still with some sort of soulful songwriting and vocals. Yeah, I've grown to like this album a lot. And again, it's not anywhere near my favorite Pepe Deluxe, but certainly important in the style. So Pepe Deluxe, Beatitude came out August. Where was it? 26, 2003. I always have a lot of records that come out in the fall. You know, it's not unusual. People they spend their whole year making, finishing the record, and then they finally put it out. So the next month, a few weeks later, on the 9th of September, you see the sophomore full-length album from the Decemberists, Her Majesty, which among the sort of classic period for the Decemberists, for me, this is the worst, but I still have enjoyed it. So they followed up Castaways and Cutouts with this. The Bachelor and the Bride, Soldiering Life. I mean, he's doing still the tales. That was kind of their MO, Colin Malloy wanting to write stories about fables of different like people or literature influenced by literature and culture. Shanty for the Arethusa, you know. I don't know. I think again they were finding their footings to some degree, you know, but very folky still, even though they had some more chamber instrumentation in this record, I believe, than it's about the same. They were still using some chamber instrumentation like mandolin and but you know, I feel like they this album they took a leap on the next record like a lot of these bands they around this time. So, but that record came out on the 9th of September 2003. So, a few weeks later, I talked about them last video, the one before it. The British band, I'm not sure where in England or the UK they're from, but South, their album With the Tides, which to me has been the only South album I've ever liked. And I don't love all of it. I like about half of it or maybe two-thirds of it. It's very textured rock. It sounds a little bit like Doves, a little bit like Porcupine Tree, a little bit like atmospheric rock. I mean, it has the Britpop influence, but it has the Radiohead influence too. But the vocals aren't as repulsive, and for some reason, the riffs work better on this. I can't even read these song titles though. If you look at it, look at cursive. But I haven't listened to this album in many years. But I remember when I was checking them out, I got it. I checked this one out, and I thought I was gonna love them. I bought two of their other records, and I think they have three or four, but they're a band of example of they have one record that's pretty decent. The others have never fully worked for me. But With the Tides is the one. If you never listened to South, never heard of South, and you like Doves or Radiohead or that kind of Brit poppy kind of psychedelic Brit pop, they're a band to check out. This would be the album to check out. With the Tides, originally released on the 23rd of September 2003. So then you got a couple records on the same day, two big albums, very big albums. Maybe I should go alphabetically. I didn't have these alphabetically. So one being wasn't really a breakthrough, but in some ways into the U.S. The first album they got used to distribution. Muse's Absolution, which has, you know, the radio was a radio state for a while. Time is running out, and it still is. Stockholm Syndrome, that guitar riff is amazing. I mean, I listened to this about a year ago again, first time in many years, and I like a lot of this, but I feel like some of it drags, and there's still some production issues. It's better produced than the Origin of Symmetry, but it has, of course, the likes of Sings for Absolution, Hysteria. I love the bass line on that. The other one. There's a couple other bangers on here. Butterflies and Hurricanes. Big influence, of course, on The Warning and many other bands in Dream Theater. But yeah, I mean, Time is Running is an absolute classic track. I never gotten sick of that song. It's very poppy, but it's so catchy, and the energy and the sort of the climax in it sort of put them on the map. I mean, they had Origin of Symmetry before it. They had a few songs like Newborn that were in there and Plug-in Baby, but this is the one that really kind of brought Muse to a bigger audience, and then they would get bigger after this. That album came out on the 29th of September. The same day, the debut album from a band that unfortunately never got fully to that. They were from the UK too, like South. Ocean Size. I've talked about a few of their singles and EPs leading up to their debut album, Effloresce. To this day, among the fans that I've seen, some people consider this their best record. Not mine, but the Pink Floyd textures on this thing are fantastic. Wall of sound at points, just huge guitar layers, and that sort of schizophrenic formula that seemed to work for Oceanside. The drumming from Mark Herron is unbelievable. The dynamics, just, you know, the Pink Floyd guitar textures are all over this album. It's trippy as hell. One Day, This All Could Be Yours, I Am the Morning, Catalyst, I Am the Morning got their name from that track. Remember Where You Are, Amputee. They had, you know, been building for a band for almost 10 years, like 8 years, and it was just, they came out with the guns a-blazing. go down with the guns, but they came up with the guns firing and just hit on a lot of cylinder on this record. Women Who Love Men Who Love Drugs, Saturday Morning Breakfast Show, Long Forgotten's a closing epic, one of the best songs. It's a great record. They did better things, but for this year coming out the same day as Absolution, I mean, unbelievable. If you were a fan of this stuff back then, and unfortunately I wasn't aware of much of it, it would be hitting you left and right that summer if you include September. So all right, we're not done yet. Some more big hitters. So then you had the October. We get into October, the end of the year. Do Make Sick Think put their album Winter Hymn, Country Hymn, Secret Hymn, which I think it's the highest rated actually on Rate Your Music. It's kind of a nondescript, abstract sort of cover art and everything like that. But I mean, I haven't spent tons of time with them. I liked them live. I'd been getting a little into them, but then I haven't gone back. If I'm listening to post rock, I would sooner listen to them than one of their bands I'm about to mention. But Do Make Say Thinks, Winter Hymn, Country Hymn, Secret Hymn, October 6, 2003. Now, the day after that, another massive release. And I didn't talk about, I put it in the picture of the previous year, Coheed and Cambridge's debut, which really wasn't very proggy. It was really mostly post-hardcore and pop punk. It has a few tracks that are okay, but the production was lacking. Second Stage Turbine Blade. But they put out In Keeping Secret Silent Earth 3 the next day on the 7th of October. And this is fantastic. I mean, the more I listen to this album, the more I love it. It's still not my favorite Coheed. The one that followed it is, but that track, The Light in the Glass, is so epic. Claudio just reaching for the stars and hitting with all cylinders. Some of the harmonies on this, some of the recalled, those vocal lines, the catchy vocal lines, the energy is still great on this. I mean, to me, they topped it a little bit like the Mars. Them and the Mars Volta did the same thing where they put out a great record, and the record was even better after it. But the Crowing, Camper Valorium Suite, it's 2113. Of course, it closes with. I love this record. It's even though they still have a little of the post-hardcore moments, there's so much sort of progressive riffs, and the harmonies are just off the chart. I love Coheed. So that came out on October 7th. The same exact day, a contemporary and very known among many fans, and Coheed and of course their drummer would later join Coheed. 3 puts out their sophomore second, proper studio album, Summer Camp Nightmare, after following that great live album Half-Life in 2002. It has Halloween, Dregs, like different versions of, they'd re-record Dregs for the next record. Broadway Alien, a different version, an earlier version of Amaze Disgrace. Of course, that's a great track. The Latest from Mars. It's, a concept album maybe in some ways about horror movies and the Summer Camp Nightmare. It's still a great record, although among the 3 canon, I'd put it probably at the bottom. But they don't have any bad records, including this one. But it's the one I've listened to the least. But because I mean, it's kind of like what Mew did, and what Freddie Midland did, and what Kevin Gilbert did. They had songs, and they figured they could record them differently better. But anyway, Summer Camp Nightmare, good record. Came out the same day as the second album. So actually, them and Coheed both put out their second album on the exact same date. What are the odds of that? Second proper studio album. It's weird. All the connections with Coheed and 3 from the same area. The sound is somewhat similar. Anyway, so then the week after, that was on the 7th of October. The week after that, you get hit with another fantastic record, the sophomore record from Murder by Death. So 2003 was the year of the sophomore record a lot for this style. Like The Exorcist, but more breakdancing. Again, he doesn't go, I think his name is Adam Turla. Does not sing in the Johnny Cash style, thankfully. And again, continuing with sort of the theatrical with the piano and violin and dynamics. And I believe this is the one that has the songs that are based on movies. I could be wrong. Maybe it was because I'm afraid of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. That one, and Those Who... I don't remember. It's conceptual, but it works. It works in a lot. I mean, I really can never decide which one I like more. I think the debut, if I had to push come to shove, I'd probably pick the debut, Who Will Survive and What's Left of Them, but it's really a push. It's really a push. With Murder by Death, post-rock, Western post-rock, Morricone influence. Yeah, unfortunately, they haven't put out a full length of since. But that came out on the 14th of October 2003. Right on Halloween, it fit the sort of theatrical element. So the week after that, or a little bit, what would have been 9 days later, so a little less than 2 weeks later, the 23rd of October 2003. Finally, the proper debut full length album from Portland's own Phenomena. I Am the Fun Blame Monster, which is an anagram or whatever. You can reword it with the first Phenomena album. I love this album. It's a 5-star album, perfect record. I find nothing wrong with it, even though it's got that sort of slightly lower 5-bedroom production. That track, The Monkey's Back, that Hammond B3 that Brent Knopf uses is just epic. It's so good. It's like Deep Purple. It's like Deep Purple meets Pink Floyd meets Zeppelin. Like channeling, yeah, kind of like No Quarter from Zeppelin. Trigger Hiccups, Rose, of course they had the EP Rose, Cough Coughing, the late great Libido, East. Every track on this thing is just a banger. Even though it's got the three-headed monster of Danny Simon, Justin Harris. The Brent tracks I like the most, including The Monkey's Back. But I believe Rose is also his, so he has the last two tracks. Of course, this version has the side stuff. I think that was on the Happiness is Bingo, some of those extra tracks, but it's a fantastic sort of progressive art rock album. Progressive. This is artsy. It's so artsy. Brent's even though he got an engineering degree from Dartmouth, he was totally artistic, and he brought some of that into sort of mechanics and visuals to make it very much of art rock from with Phenomena. So that album came out the 23rd of October 2003. So that's kind of the end of the big hitters. Though we still had a few records that came out on November 4th. I'm not a fan of this band, but this is probably their biggest and most well known, so I'm including it on here. The post rock, overtly post rock, sort of, what do you call it, tremolo picking or whatever. Explosion in the Sky, The Earth is Not a Cold Dead Place came out on November 4th. From a standpoint of post rock and influence, it would be foolish to not at least mention this album, probably the most influential they ever had. So that came out November 4th. Then we see another album from Minnesota Zones almost every year in the 2000s. Minnesota Zones later on the right, Game of Chess. Again, with the long song titles and Siege of Delhi. The Basket of Turf, Nothing Will Sadden Us Again. Yeah, I mean, they're like, them and Sufjan could get together and they're both sort of folkish. But, again, John Wright and, what's his name? Leto, I forget his first name. They both come from the Celtic and sort of Irish background doing folk music, but especially John has the prog influence as well. And a Game of Chess, so typical for something like a prog thing. The band Tiles actually had an album that was kind of like that, but anyway, like a song. It was a song off their second record. So that came out on November 15th, that Leto and Wright album. So then, somewhat of an important record, though it's not their best. I mentioned them earlier, their previous EPs, but the debut sort of mini album, full length album, it's considered their first full length album. Caddisflies, Portland, Oregon's Caddisfly, Did You Know People Can Fly? This is the first album, I believe, with both Cuther brothers. With Bo. Bo had joined. Kelsey, rather. The drummer, had been with them originally. But this features especially two tracks. One being Midnight in Shanghai. They would play live when I'd see that's really kind of mystical and everything. Like, they bring in a lot of world instrumentation at points in their music. But then the closing epic, Day Disappears with the Absence of Night. There's like some djembe on that, the dynamics. It's a 15-minute prog epic. It's great. I mean, this is better than the two EPs they'd released, but they kind of jumped up in terms of their ambition, their songwriting style. You could still say this is part post-hardcore, part art rock. They kind of went to like 75 to 80% art rock on the next record, but I always like the title, Did You Know People Can Fly? Actually, there's some songs that they don't do any screaming, that Chris Ruff doesn't do any screaming, and actually, there's maybe a little more of it, but as a whole, the songwriting is a little more artsy on the next record, but we'll be talking about that, of course. So then to round it out, so I don't have a release date, and I believe it's just an EP, but it's on this collection. It's a great collection, at least some of it. Anathello put out their EP Holiday at Sea in 2003. I don't know when it was, but I find I like it more than Sparrows, and I don't like it more than Luminous, but it's kind of splitting hairs. But it really foreshadowed where they would go with not the next release. The next release was just like a religious thing, was kind of, but hymns. But then the two albums after that, where they really embrace the sort of big chamber sound. But Holiday at Sea kind of foreshadows and does some of that. Some people love that, the drum work and percussion and clapping and stuff. So that's it for 2003 for progressive art rock. I'm sure I'm missing some stuff. I frequently am just remembering stuff, but I'll be putting that stuff either in the description or be mentioned on later videos. I'll go on to 2004 hopefully tomorrow if I have time. But I think that 2003, you just look at as a summary. You have OSI, you have the New Pornographers, Frengers, the Mars Volta Deluxe, and the Comatorium, Efflorescence from Oceanside, Absolution, Coin Capers in Keeping Secrets, Murder by Death, and Menomena's debut album. That's fantastic. You have those like those 8 records or those 9 records, kind of to me showed where the sort of the depth and the more key albums started to come out for many years after this. 2002 was good. 2001 was kind of hit and miss, kind of spotty. It had some stuff, but I think this is sort of where progressive art rock really started to kind of show up and improve the sort of the album compositions and the sort of the styles. The bands were kind of maturing and perfecting their craft. And of course, there would be new bands that be showing up the years after this, which would kind of go through the same thing. That's kind of a common pattern. Sometimes the debut album is like the best thing they do. But anyway, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.